Welcome, 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 geeks and nerds, girls and boys, to another all-new edition of Geek to Me Radio. Today we are celebrating the 16th anniversary of Justice League, the animated series. Our guest is Susan Eisenberg, the definitive voice of Wonder Woman. We'll have a mystery guest later on, and we'll take your calls. Stand by.
We're talking TV, comics and movies, and video games. And if you don't know Star Trek and Star Wars, we'll try to explain. There are 12 doctors for Hogwarts houses, one ring rules them all. To be the greatest Pokemon master, you must catch them all. You must catch them all. Try to catch them all. Gotta catch them all. Gotta catch them all.
And if you are in the greater St. Louis area listening to us on 105.3 FM and 1380 AM, we appreciate that. If you're listening to this online, streaming us, that's awesome too. And if you're listening to this after the fact in the podcast form on Podomatic, iTunes, Google Play, or SoundCloud, we appreciate your listening there as well. We are going to dive right in. We're going to bring up our premier guest, Susan Eisenberg, the definitive voice of Wonder Woman. When I'm reading the Wonder Woman comics, she's the voice I hear in my head. Susan, thanks so much for being on air with us.
Are you kidding? It's an anniversary celebration. I wouldn't miss it.
This is so exciting, too. It's hard to believe, thinking back, because I remember getting the DVDs. I didn't have cable at the time when it was airing, so I didn't have Cartoon Network. But as soon as the DVDs came out, I would snap them up, and I'd watch them. You know, they had the 3-episode arc for the Secret Origins, or if it was, whichever one that was coming out next, I'd grab those. And that can't have been 16 years ago.
It was 16 years ago, my friend.
Hard to believe.
I know. And I can just, I have certain DVDs that have been played over and over and over, from having, nieces and nephews over to friends' children. And when they would come over, it was like they would want the same ones each and every time. So Maid of Honor, the glorious episode of Maid of Honor has been watched over and over. That DVD player is like, really? Again? But yeah, I mean, it has been 16 years.
And November 17th, so we're just 5 days away, but because my show falls on a Sunday, it was hard to nail the date, so I appreciate your coming on a little early.
Oh, my pleasure.
And so the episodes, obviously being one of the main 7 characters, you were in nearly all of them. Do you have, I know you just mentioned Maid of Honor, which is a classic episode. Do you have a favorite if you had to pick one?
I don't think I could pick one, truly. I mean, I'm not even trying to be cute about it. It's just there were too many that were really memorable for whatever reason, like whether it was my story with Batman or Hawkgirl and Green Lantern or Martian Manhunt. Like, there were just too many. And it's funny because I knew I was going to be on the show, and in preparation of that, I was looking at some of the old episodes and the titles and the synopses, and it brings me right back there to, Paradise Lost and The Brave and the Bold. I mean, it was so legendary for so many reasons, and mostly those reasons have to do with the writing. And so I'm looking at all these scripts and all these talented writers that we had, and it's impossible to say, okay, it was just one episode, because it was 5 years of glorious. So, no, I mean, definitely Maid of Honor, definitely This Little Piggy, because that was just so iconic in terms of, how it's evolved, with Kevin singing, and just all of it was just so glorious. But, there truly, I mean, Paradise Lost was really significant because there were just some pieces to that were really special for Themyscira and just the Wonder Woman story. But then, like, Hawk and Dove was fun, and it was entertaining, and there was a lot of comedy to it. And you had, the guest stars, the brothers from the Wonder Years, playing brothers, Hawk and Dove on our show. And so that kind of stuff. I mean, there were stories like that for every episode. That's the thing. That's why it's so hard to narrow down to one, because all the guest stars that came on to perform with us They were all really well-known actors and actresses. And so you'd look across the room and, there would be Ed Asner or Alfred Molina, just wonderful, talented people. So to answer your question, there is not one single episode, but there's just many, many, many.
Well, I was looking, speaking of the talent that was on the show, aside from just the seven of you, you mentioned Ed Asner. You had almost half the cast of Firefly. You had Adam Baldwin played Rick Flag and
Yes.
Jonah Hex. Morena
Yep.
Baccarin played Black Canary. Nathan Fillion, obviously Vigilante. Gina Torres was Vixen. So that's almost the entire cast of Firefly right there.
Well, look who was doing it. I think that what's so great about the crew that we had was that they were all fans of the genre. So I think that they loved to have Nathan and all these other people, Gina, all these people play with us because it was like a hats off to the performers, to the stories, to the origins, to the audience. The audience was in on it with us. So I think it kind of thrilled our audience and it thrilled the people that were making the show.
And with, speaking of Gina Torres and Morena Baccarin, Black Canary and Vixen, respectively, they had one of my favorite episodes has to be with Roulette, where there ends up Amy Acker, Huntress, finds out that Black Canary's been fighting in this illegal fighting ring for superheroes, and then come to find out Roulette's been behind it. And then at the very end, when they all finally get out from whatever the electronic control was, here you come up rising through the floor, and you have to take on Hawkgirl, Black Canary, Vixen. It was a fantastic episode.
That was a great episode. And I see that it gets played a lot. That's one of those episodes, or that's one of those segments of the show that people just really dig it. And it doesn't get old. You can keep watching it. That's why DVDs are brilliant, because if Netflix has the show streaming or doesn't, if you have the DVDs, there you have it. Like on any given day, you can pull out your Justice League shows and revisit the past, which I think is fantastic.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I know we recently lost Powers Booth, who played Gorilla Grodd.
Yep.
And that was just, whenever you see a celebrity go, but when you've got a connection to him, like he was, the way he voiced it and took on that character was just really, really gripping.
Yeah, it was. And I would see him in it wasn't as if we were going out for coffee after the session, but of course I was in the booth with him. We were all together recording. People often ask me about the difference between recording for a video game and for an animated show. And with the Justice League, especially, we were always together. So it was the cast and then, of course, the guest stars. And, so you got to look over and you got to see Powers Booth work and all these, extraordinary actors. So, yeah, it's a heartbreak, but, how lucky were we that we had this extraordinary experience together.
And another one of my favorite episodes was for The Man Who Has It All, I think, where you and Batman go to the Fortress of Solitude, and Eric Roberts plays Mongol, and I kept thinking I know the voice, and I looked in the credits, I'm like, that was Eric Roberts.
Well, that's like a game. That should be a game, that people can play. Like, who's that voice in the Justice League? Because you've obviously seen, because you've looked it up, but there are a million actors who guest starred. And Andrea Romano used to talk about this. She could get so many wonderful people to come say yes. And it wasn't like they were getting paid a gazillion dollars. They just really wanted to do it. And it was one of those things where if you had a kid or a niece, or you could share that experience with them. And a lot of people hadn't done animation before, and they would just come in, and that was just a thrill. And for The Man Who Has Everything, it has some great lines. When I say, don't tell me you got him a gift card, Bruce. When Batman and I are walking in, that was J.M. DeMatteis, and he wrote that episode, and Dan Reba directed that episode. And again, you can't talk about the show without talking about the people behind the scenes. Oftentimes the actors get most of the attention, but a show like this, you really have to see who the creative team was and really pay attention to those credits, because that was just a very special moment in time in terms of the history.
Absolutely.
So Yeah, and it's so appreciated. It's so appreciated by the fans. And even just announcing that I was going to be doing this with you today, there was just such a wonderful response to the show. And, that's just extraordinarily gratifying.
I can imagine. We've actually, speaking of gratifying, we have a caller on the line here we're going to try to take very quickly before our break who wants to say hello to Susan. This is Nathan, I believe?
Zachary Nathanson.
Hello, Zachary.
Susan. Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great. One of my favorite, I want to say thank you for bringing Wonder Woman to life in the Justice League series that you did. And I'd like to ask you that one of my favorite episodes that you did, the question I'm going to ask you is, what was did you stay in character during the sessions for Justice League? And what was the hardest scene to do in the series that you did?
We didn't stay in character. We were only in character when we were really in the scenes. And as soon as as soon as we finished the take, the shenanigans would ensue. I mean, we would just be ourselves, and it was a big group of people typically. So, there were jokes, and there was teasing, and there was just chatting, until Andrea Romano made us get serious and get back to work. So no, we did not stay in character. I mean, Batman, Kevin Conroy was not going around, being mopey and all of that. No. But so that's that question. And then, the hardest, there were a couple of really emotional episodes. So, I mean, certainly one of the last, our last episode was very emotional to do because we knew it was our last episode. Mm. But for the most part, the heaviness, the more dramatic stuff was also pitted with other humorous pieces too. So there was a balance. So even in some of the darker storylines, there was, what was so brilliant was that you had some light too. And oftentimes, most of the time, you got a happy ending. So it relieved a lot of the intensity, if you will.
Perfect. Zachary, thank you very much for calling in. We appreciate you listening.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Vera. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. And Susan's going to be with us the whole hour. If you do want to call in toll-free, 844-855-1380, toll-free line from anywhere in the United States. We're going to take our first break. We will come right back with Susan Eisenberg and our mystery guest right after this.
This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman. You're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
And we are back celebrating the 16th anniversary of Justice League, the animated series, which had its debut on Cartoon Network, November 17th, 2001. We have Susan Eisenberg on the line right now, who voiced Wonder Woman, and we have a special guest calling in. Susan, are you're standing by still, correct?
I am indeed, sir.
Our mystery guest is on the line with us, Andrea Romano, who voice directed, who cast the animated series Justice League, and so many more. Andrea, thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to join us on air.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me.
We were talking with Susan in the first segment there. It's hard to believe it's been 16 years since this show aired on the Cartoon Network.
It's amazing how time is going by. Someone just a week or so ago, I did a Comic-Con down in downtown Los Angeles. Stan Lee's Kamikaze.
Yeah.
And we were celebrating the 30th year of DuckTales, the first series ever directed. And so, yes, although this is bizarre and strange that it's 16 years because I just had that anniversary, it's not quite as, huge a shock to me. But it is amazing that it was that long ago. Is this the anniversary of when it first aired?
When it first aired, it actually aired on November 17th, 2001. So we're just 5 days out, but my show's on a Sunday, so we're a little off one way or the other. So there's your surprise guest, Andrea Romano.
Andrea! Hello, darling. How are you?
Well, and I've joked with Andrea because I've said to her often that I've never given an interview. I've never been interviewed about the Justice League where I don't talk about her. because my performance and my experience with the Justice League will always be connected to Andrea Romano. She was the one that helped me find that character and stayed with me the whole time. So I'm so thrilled. I didn't know who the mystery guest was. James didn't tell me. So I'm so
this
thrilled.
Makes me happy.
It's you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who's responsible for all those wonderful voices? It's you.
Thank you. Well, thank you for all those kind words. And it's so cool that we've been doing things publicly for so many years about this series that even after the show was off the air, everybody still wanted to have some contact with the Justice League. And I have to say that you, Susan, probably are the flag carrier for the Justice League, because it seems people flock around you when they hear that you're going to be around. You're the one that actually seems to be talking to people about this show still after all these years, that people actually have access to you, and that makes me happy, and I'm thanking you for that.
Well, thank you, and if we could get you on Twitter, they'd have the same access to you. You'd never get a free moment.
Maybe that's why she's staying away from Twitter.
That is exactly it. That's true.
But James, tell her, hashtag Andrea Romano. I mean, it's crazy, right? I mean, it's the love out there for her. But the truth is that there's so many people out there, so many fans, for whom the Justice League, the television show, was their introduction to so many of these characters. I'm told that all the time, that for a certain generation of fans, their exposure to Wonder Woman or Batman or Hawkgirl was through the animated series. So, that if there's anything I can do on my end, whether it's the reunions or anything like that, to keep that alive for the fans and for us too, because we love being together. We don't get to do it that often, but when we were in Denver, James, that we were thrilled to be able to be on stage again together.
It was absolutely wonderful. It's a wonderful group of people, and it doesn't happen with every series, but I'm fortunate that with many of the series that I worked on, it does truly become a family, the crew and the cast, and a family that we chose as opposed to a family that we're stuck with. And so when we have those opportunities to, and Denver was really special too, because we got the chance to table read a show. And that was really fun, and I think the fans really enjoyed that too. And it was a nice space that we were in, and we really truly enjoyed each other's company. And so when we do have those family reunions every couple of years, it's really quite lovely, and everybody comes away feeling kind of warm and fuzzy from it.
So, Andrea, I'll pose you the question that I posed to Susan earlier. Do you have a favorite episode? I know when you guys did the reading at Denver Comic-Con, you chose Star-Crossed, but would that be a favorite episode, or was that just the one that was?
It's just a really good one. Asking me which my favorite one is would actually have more meaning if I could actually remember every single episode, but I just don't. And it's not just Justice League. I've been lucky to do many different series, and so someone will come up and mention an episode, and I'll say, "Wow, I haven't even thought of that episode since it aired, but it was wonderful." It's just that something else comes in and takes its place. What makes me happy is that the fans still love these shows so much that they will watch those episodes over and over and over again, just like we did for episodes that we liked when we were younger. And that it keeps it fresh for them, so that when somebody comes up and mentions a specific Batman episode or a specific Justice League episode, there is one that always comes to mind, though, and I don't remember the title of it, but it's a Christmas episode. And I remember it specifically that John Jones is feeling particularly homesick. Do you remember the name of that episode, James?
Comfort and Joy.
Yes.
Nicely done. And it's so heartfelt and so touching. And that episode I remember specifically because Carl was so wonderful in it. And it's about his character missing his family and, his entire society, his civilization is all gone. There's nobody left but him. And then he sings this, I don't know if it's meant to be their equivalent of a Christmas carol, or if it's something funereal, or if it's a hopeful song, because it's alien. It's from Mars. And Carl came up with this magnificent sound, this atonal hard to even call it a melody, sound that's so, it's almost like keening, you know what I mean? Like, but mournful and sad. It's so beautiful. And that episode had lots of humor in it and lots of pathos in it. And I just remembered that specifically. And since the holidays are coming, that one came to mind.
That's I watch every Christmas. That's when I have my top 10 favorite Christmas episodes. That always goes in the rotation. And Carl Lumley, I don't know if you guys are keeping up. He's now playing Martian Manhunter's dad in Supergirl on the CW.
Supergirl. Yeah.
Isn't that cool? When I read that, it made me so happy.
Yep. And the fans have been overjoyed. I mean, really, seeing that reaction from the fans to seeing Carl having done that, and just it's so perfect that they cast him.
I say WB Entertainment and the CW and DC does a really great job with their small screen stuff of making homages and nice nods to other projects that have been done and connected, and I think that's great the way they do that.
I agree. Yeah, I am so impressed with the live action series because, you know, I've been involved in the DC universe for, I'm sorry, it's decades. It's literally decades. And who would have thought? Because, you know, I didn't read comic books as a kid. Did you, Susan? Did you read action comic books when you were a kid? No, girls didn't do that. And so this was my introduction into it, was essentially Batman the Animated Series. And then I did, you know, Superman and Justice League Unlimited and then Teen Titans and, you know, a lot of different other projects that all were part of the DC universe. So when I think it was the Kids WB or the WB first, bringing up live action shows like Smallville and those various other shows that came through. And I kind of was protective of those properties, like, hey, these are my babies. And then I was happy to see them do such a good job and really keep an unusual but youthful tone that made it accessible to the modern audience. And they always, you know, paid homage to us by hiring some of the actors that we worked with. And it became this kind of large family. And then after Smallville, there was I guess Arrow came next, and then The Flash, and then Supergirl, and I'm not even sure how many other ones there are out there now. There's just so many of them. And everyone that I see, I'm so impressed with what a good job they're doing of, you know, making it their own and making it interesting for people doing new production, but also staying true to what we did in the animated series and what they did in the comic books. It's really quite wonderful.
So I know I told you I'd only keep you for one segment, Andrea. I don't want to cut into your Sunday too much. But before I let you go, do you have any expectations for the new Justice League film? Are you excited? Are you cautiously optimistic?
I only hope for the best for them. These are my children, these characters, and the actors that worked on them were my children. So I don't know much. I don't have any insight into what's going on, but I always hope it does well because that means more will be made, and that's always good. I
would certainly hope that they would be consulting the two of you before they go forward with these movies. That would be the smart thing to do, I would think.
It would make me really happy to do a big, fat Justice League animated feature. It would make me, I would come out of retirement to do that.
Oh, you heard it here first.
Oh, gosh. Yes, God, I just got chills. I would do that. That would be worth it. That would absolutely be worth it.
From what I've heard from the other voice actors, Andrea, they would all jump at the chance to do it again, so.
Not even a
so
question.
Warner Brothers and DC just have to have a long conversation and figure out how to make it happen because we're all available to do it and we'd all be on board. So
after the show, I'll give Jeff Johns a call and we'll put a word in for you.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. Very kind of you to have me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday, and I'm hoping it was a surprise for Susan.
It was truly it was. I'm thrilled.
All right. Well, thank you once again. We're gonna be right back after this break, talking more with Susan Eisenberg about Justice League and their anniversary coming up right after this.
Hi, this is George Newbern, the voice of Superman. You are listening to Geek to Me Radio.
And we are back once again talking about the Justice League animated series 16th anniversary, first debuted on Cartoon Network on November 17th, 2001. Our guest today is Susan Eisenberg, the voice of Wonder Woman. Just to let you know, Susan, people on Twitter have been loving the show so far. We have at Marlando Mariff 2 said, love that girl, in response to Susan Eisenberg being on the air with us. We had at Trip Hop Matt say a full-length feature animated film revisiting the world of the Justice League is long overdue, maybe for the 20th anniversary at WB Entertainment.
Oh.
So there's something.
Idea.
Yeah, that would give you 4 years to cast and plan and hype.
Imagine how many interviews we could do, James.
I know.
Time.
That's crazy.
Well, you know what? Honestly, I can't imagine a better thing to do than an animated series with all of us. I mean, it would just be so exciting and thrilling. But, you know, they have a few things on their plate right now with the live action. So I assume they're a little busy right now.
If they concentrate on the good stuff, though, let's get the animated stuff. Let's deal with the good stuff.
That's true. And, you know, I just have to mention, because going to commercial and coming back, you have the theme music playing from the Justice League. Mm-hmm. And I can't imagine there's anyone out there who's a fan of the show who doesn't get the goosebumps like I do when I hear that music. And we should really give a shout out to Lolita Ritmanis and Michael, I think his last name is pronounced McCustian, Christopher Carter. They were the composers and the writers of that theme music, and it has endured, and it is really something special.
Yeah, no, the music, a lot of these, you know, you'll see stuff. And we had a composer who does video game composing on, Gary Scheinman, a couple weeks ago. And I mentioned the same thing to him. When you're watching this stuff, you're so invested that the music, you're hearing it, but you're not paying as close attention as you should. And when you hear it on its own, like coming back from commercial, it really does give you the goosebumps and the chills up the spine.
It does. And it never hasn't. That's the beauty of that theme music. I mean, you know, we had Justice League, and then, of course, we had Justice League Unlimited, so it was a different theme song, but they're both phenomenal. And, you know, for me, the Justice League, the original it's just iconic for me. I mean, you can just play a few notes, and you know what's coming. You know, we always, if we do reunions, we get introduced with that music underneath us. So it's, you know, it's just one of those special themes that we were lucky enough to get.
Yeah, no, the music and the like you mentioned, the story too, all the writing that was done, and a lot of the writers, you know, they came from the comic book world, so they just had to adapt it a little bit for the TV screen and for the live action stuff. But they've done such a great job. All the animated episodes, be it Batman the Animated Series or Superman the Animated Series, even the direct to DVD feature length films, the animated feature length films have been fantastic.
Right. No, it's, you know, but I think that really speaks to the fans that are behind it. Like, in other words, Bruce Timm is a fan of the genre. You know, he knows it better than anybody. He knows the history. He's read the comic books. He knows all of this stuff. It's not like he's an outsider to this. And I was an outsider to this. I didn't grow up. I mean, I did read, you know, Archie comics, and I did read some comics, but I certainly didn't read Wonder Woman or Justice League, and I didn't really know too much about the universe. And it has been quite an education, and it's still an education because, I mean, how many origin stories are there? I mean, I'm just, you know, it's so overwhelming sometimes. And when I go to conventions, I'll talk to the fans and try to get them to explain certain things to me. And on Twitter, people explain certain things to me because I didn't grow up with it. So I came late to the game.
But you're fully well-versed now, apparently.
Well, because I love it, and because I so appreciate it, and I respect it. And I respect the fans who grew up loving it and loving our show. And I want to have a reasonably intelligent conversation with them. So I've tried to educate myself a little bit. But, you know, it's a passion that they have, and I just respect it enormously.
Absolutely. Yeah, when you have people who know their stuff doing the writing, that's when it all comes together, and then you've got a fantastic voice cast like the group you got to work with, and obviously you, directed by someone who is passionate and invested like Andrea. It's just the perfect storm, and I think that's why 16 years later we're still talking about this cartoon that was so just iconic.
Yeah, and I get told so many times, and I know that every other cast member of the show and other writers and directors get told the same thing, which is that we are a part of somebody's childhood. And I can't tell you how often I get get told that, and people share their stories of running home from school or it helping them through a bad time or whatever their story is. They got introduced to Wonder Woman or Batman for the first time. And, I don't think any of us take that lightly. I think all of us are so grateful for having had this experience because, like Andrea said, it's not all the time that you have this this assembly of all these different talents together, and it works, and you create something that it feels very magical and also stands the test of time. So I know I speak on behalf of all of us. It's, it's an honor.
Absolutely. It just, like I said, just rewatching some of the episodes this morning when I was trying to get prepped for this, I still get, it's so cool to see this and everything. So it's one of those that I think we'll be talking about it 16 years from now too.
I agree, and I also look at Batman the Animated Series. I mean, they just had a huge anniversary, and that is as enjoyed today as it was back then, if not more, because people have access to it. And I mean, the fans are still talking about it. So as long as the fans are still appreciating it, we're still here to honor that.
Very cool. We are going to take another break. You're okay to stick with us for the rest of the show, right?
I am indeed. Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. We'll be right back talking all things Justice League with Susan Eisenberg right after this. Stand by.
Hey, this is Phil Lamar.
Homie Conrad.
The samurai known as Jack. And you're listening to Geek to Me Radio.
Phil Lamar, of course, in addition to Samurai Jack, voiced John Stewart, Green Lantern, in the Justice League series. Susan, I have a quick question for you. Do you like popcorn?
I love it.
Well, let me tell you.
Are you serving it?
Oh, well, I actually have a special right now because one of our sponsors is Popcorn Buddha. And if you like popcorn, you got to check out their website. It's popcornbuddhausa.com. They have over 80 flavors of popcorn. They'll ship it anywhere. You can buy it by the bag. Holiday season coming up, you can buy a big popcorn tin, ship it to your relatives. You can mix flavors.
That's a good holiday gift.
It is.
A great gift.
They've got chocolate flavors, they've got sweet flavors, savory flavors, spicy hot flavors. They even have vegan flavors. One of my favorite is the barbecue bacon ranch. It's delicious.
Not speaking of vegan. I mean, but the great thing is my favorite is the salty and the sweet.
They have mixes like that too. Absolutely.
I love that. Those are my favorites, but they're dangerous because you can eat the whole. Oh, I can eat the whole bag.
And I have, believe me.
Dangerous. I know, it's horrible.
No, he was kind enough to send me some samples, and I went through and just pounded the entire bag it's supposed to feed a family of 5, I'm sure, and I blew through it in one episode of Parks and Rec. But if you want to check out their website, popcornbuddhausa.com, and just for my listeners, if you enter the coupon code GEEK during checkout, it's going to knock 15% off your subtotal. And like I said, they'll ship it anywhere. So please check out their website, popcornbuddhausa.com. Any of my listeners put in that coupon code GEEK, and you'll get 15% off your subtotal. Fantastic flavors, delicious popcorn. They're the best. Speaking of the best, we still have Susan Eisenberg with us. So I guess you get that a lot too when people come up to you when they say the same thing I do, that when they read Wonder Woman, you're the voice in the head now.
I mean, they do say that, and it's it blows me away, and it never gets old to hear it because when you're lucky enough to make an impression on somebody, you have to feel a lot of gratitude for that. It's not many people get that opportunity, and I was very, very, very lucky to get that opportunity back in 2000 when I started the show. So, I never take it for granted.
And we talked a little bit about, you mentioned some shenanigans going on in the booth when you guys were doing your thing. So a little behind the scenes story. Who was there someone who you could always count on to always be playing jokes and everything? Was it Kevin? Was it Michael? Michael seems like a trickster.
Right. So, I mean, there you go. It was Michael. Of course it was Michael Rosenbaum. What's so great about Michael, I mean, there's a lot of great things about Michael, but one of the really terrific things about him is that he is the Flash in so many ways. He's very childlike and he just has that wonderful childlike heart. And, he's sweet, he's kind, he's dear, he's funny as can be. And so there was always levity. That's why when one of the callers, when Zachary was asking about, things that were intense or sad, there was Michael making a joke and lifting the whole experience. So yeah, he was definitely the zaniest. And, Phil Lamar was the most knowledgeable. He knows this universe as well as any of the fans. He is a fan.
Yeah.
So he knows this world really well. And what's so great about Phil, if you don't mind me saying, is people are always surprised when they meet him because Green Lantern was, had that big, booming voice, like he was a 300-pound, all-muscle kind of dude. And, not that Phil doesn't have his own, power, but he's not a huge dude. And people are so astonished when they meet him. And I love that because, that's one of his gifts, that he can be anybody. When you hire Phil Lamar, you're going to get 60 voices, because he can do it all. So, it was just an amazing cast. I mean, just such good actors.
So Phil, we had him on the show just before the premiere of this last season of Samurai Jack, and I asked him about Jon Stewart finding the voice, and he told me, he said, the reason I did that voice is because he said he was waiting to go in for the audition, and coming out of the audition, the guy was in right before him was that big dude from the Allstate commercials who does Allstate.
That's right.
And Phil said, well, that guy looks like Jon Stewart. How am I going to get this part? So he went in and just tried to do the voice that he thought that guy did before. And he said that's kind of like, I guess he said, I out-Allstated the Allstate guy, is what he told me.
Oh, gosh, that's so great. And, it's funny to think back to all of our auditions, because that's, when people ask me sometimes, like, so why aren't you guys doing another show? Or why aren't you doing a movie? Or why aren't you? And it's like they don't realize that we're actors and we have to wait for the phone to ring in order to get the job. Although I should say that Phil is actually doing a Kickstarter for an animated series that he's going to be doing. So I think that I applaud that so much, because for actors, you don't have a lot of power in making these things come to life. And now more than ever, we're seizing that power and this opportunity in time to just create our own projects, which, is fantastic.
Yeah, I know he's got that Kickstarter. If you want to find Phil Lamar, it's at Phil Lamar on Twitter, and he's got a link, I think it's pinned to his Twitter page, for his Kickstarter for his Goblins animated project, which looks really good. Really good.
It does. And, but as I was saying about the audition, so you have somebody like George Newbern, who, I grew up with, and I had this huge crush on, because Princess, not Princess, help me, Father of the Bride.
Oh, yes.
And, he was the adorable son-in-law in Father of the Bride, and I had seen him on Designing Women. So, he was just this presence in my life before I actually worked with him. And so it's sweet to think of everybody auditioning for these Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, and Maria doing Hawkgirl and bringing her to life like she did. I mean, I can't imagine anyone voicing her now, because Maria just made it so her own. And so, those scenes with her and Phil, that love story that they had, we did that, in Starcross. We did those scenes when we were in Denver, and it was still so touching.
Yeah, no, the hush fell over the crowd. I saw the YouTube of that, and just everyone was so quiet when they were saying their goodbyes at the end of Starcross. It was great.
I know. It was really,
you could hear a pin drop in this big auditorium.
It completely, and it was as emotional as any live action. I mean, that's what was so brilliant about it. Yes, it's a cartoon and it's animated, but my God, I mean, it's so moving and so touching to watch those shows.
We are going to take our last break. Right before we go, though, I want to let you know about Historic St. Charles. If you want to go down there, their Christmas Traditions Festival is coming up right now. It's going to be starting on Black Friday, right after Thanksgiving. It runs all the way through until the day after Christmas. Live action street performers. They've got international Santas. They've got roasted chestnuts. It's the whole Dickensian Christmas thing. And yes, I said Dickensian on the air. The FCC is going to have to deal with it. But it's if you want to go out for a good time, it doesn't have to be just at Christmas. They just got done with their Legends and Lanterns Festival. They've got unique shopping and dining experiences all up and down there. You go to their website, discoverstcharles.com, plan your trip, check out the things to do, and Christmas traditions will come up as a banner on there. You can go out and explore Frontier Park. You can bike or jog up and down the Katy Trail. You can hit the Bike Stop Cafe, get some really great food. If you want to hang out for the evening, go hit the winery of the Little Hills, have a glass of wine, sit outside by the fire pit. We're in that nice fall weather right now where it'd be perfect. Check them out. We are very proud to have them as our premier sponsor, discoverstcharles.com. We're going to come back and wrap things up with Susan Eisenberg right after this.
This is Michael Rosenbaum. You might know me as Lex Luthor or Martin X from Guardians of the Galaxy, and you're listening to Geek to Me Radio. Why am I talking like this?
Michael Rosenbaum, the voice of The Flash. Susan Eisenberg was just singing his praises. Before I let everyone go, I want to sing the praises of our other sponsor, Tenacious Eats Full Contact Dining. If you like movies, if you like gourmet food, you're going to want to go to tenaciouseats.com and get tickets for their upcoming show. This coming Saturday, they're doing Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Chef Liz Schuster will pair the movie with a 5-course dinner, which is just absolutely out of this world. It's classic movie, great food. She has a degree in film study, and she is a world-class chef. So you get the best of both worlds merged together. That's why they call it full contact dining. I will actually be there as the master of ceremonies for the evening. So don't let that stop you from coming out, though. I will be there, but don't not come just for that reason. TenaciousEats.com for tickets. Susan, tell everyone where they can find you on the interwebs.
They can find me on Twitter at Susan Eisenberg1 and Instagram Susan Eisenberg21 and my website SusanEisenbergVoice.com.
Thank you so much for being on air with us. We will be back next week.
It's not in the way you watch The Flash. It's not in the way you love Scotty Young art. It's not in the way you play Mario Kart. It's not in the way you look when you make Game of Thrones references. That's a show. This is Geek to Me Radio. That's a show.
Justice League Watchtower. Good night.